All right. Make sure everything's working. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone is healthy and safe. Wherever you are, we're still here, of course, in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, where the wildfire thing is still going on. The air is okay today. I don't think I'm going to need to wear a mask today, thankfully. But I hope all of you are healthy and safe at home as well on this wonderful Sunday also. So I want to thank you for joining me in this session. And as always, I just want to say that I'm super honored to be with you here in Live Sacred Space in this time of continuing sensitivity and uncertainty. And I'm really looking forward to sharing time with you in our shared sacred space together today. So the things we want to do here in our time together is, number one, as we do every week, I will set sacred space. And we'll talk about our overall topic today, which will be on the seven chakras, and how they map to and relate to the realms of the sacred and profane, as we have been talking about them up to this point. We'll have a little bit of an exercise, and then we'll close sacred space after that. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and start the process of setting sacred space by saying that we come together here today. Just check one thing here on the tech. Okay, I think we're good. We come here together today with the intention of setting a space which is devoid of fear, threat, and control, in order for us to open to higher guidance, however we define higher guidance, from within our own selves, right? Intuition, flashes of insight, flashes of inspiration. And what we want to do here is we want to create a safe sanctuary space that will enable each one of us to relax and surrender, let our guard down, as it were, with no fear of danger or threat, right, while we do that, so that we can partake of the emotional nourishment and spiritual nourishment that comes from being in sacred space together as a group. And in opening sacred space today, I will propose, as I do every week, that we all follow the principles of Presidian sacred space, these four principles that we kind of articulate and set at the beginning of every session to create this sacred space together. And the four principles are, number one, confidentiality. So what is said in sacred space stays in sacred space. Now that's more typically for an in-person, gathering. That is, we never record those when we do them in person. But here, since we're online, since we're remote, and everything is being recorded for the replay, the way we do confidentiality is through anonymization. So if you wish to be anonymous, and you don't have to be, but if you wish to be, you would come into the Crowdcast kind of stream of this event. You would go into edit profile of your Crowdcast profile, and then just change your username to like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Harry Potter, whatever, and then come back in and chat, ask questions as you feel so moved, completely anonymously. Okay, so that's the first principle. The second principle is that in sacred space, there is no threat, no controlling, no fixing, no intervention, no tough love, right? No, like, this is good for, this is going to hurt, but it's good for you, or this will hurt you more than it hurts me, right? So what we're doing in sacred space here is that we are not doing any of that. Rather, what we're doing is we are holding space for each other to be however we are, good, bad, however we are, right? Without any fear or expectation that we will be controlled, interfered with, healed, right? Any of that. So that, and the intention here is that we want to create a space where we just can be afraid. We can fall apart. We can be anxious. We can be happy. We can be relaxed. we can feel guilty and uncomfortable that we feel happy and relaxed if we do, right? And then however it is we feel, to be okay with that, right? And to hold space for just that, whatever it happens to be. That said, as we always say, there's nothing wrong with fixing or even controlling or sort of tough love. But because those are in the realms of fear, threat, and control, that is of the provenance of the profane, which isn't bad, it's just profane, right? But when we come into the sacred, we're creating a different kind of space where we don't do those things for an hour or two, at least every week on these Sunday sessions, so that we can do the things that can only be done in the sacred. Just like in the profane, there are things that can only be done in the profane. And we keep each to each, and we partake of both in our lives, sacred and profane, as we wish. Okay. So the third principle is a corollary to the last one, which is no commerce. Right? Nothing may be sold or even recommended or suggested. We are here for your energy, not for the things you bring. We are here for you and what you are, not for what you do or provide. So no one, please, can't sell anything, can't recommend, oh, there's a great book that will fix that or whatever. And also, obviously, I can't sell you anything. And even when we do Q&A sessions now, we don't do them in sacred space. We wait till after sacred space is closed to do Q&A, because sometimes people ask about programs that I give. And I prefer to just keep that outside of sacred space. Not that there's an issue per se as the facilitator, but I'm a participant too, and I want to enjoy my sacred space too. I don't want to have to be in the role of what I said in that talk about the sacred and profane in art and beauty. I don't want to have to wear my hat of didactic pornographer when I'm in sacred space with all of you. So that's the third. The fourth is no expectation of participation. So there's no pressure to do anything. This is a realm devoid of fear, threat, and control. And again, the nourishment comes from the held space and your presence and attention from what you are, not from what you do or provide. So you don't have to ask any questions. You don't have to chat. You don't have to stay. You don't have to come in the first place. It's however you want. Come and go as you please. And all of us together holding the space will maintain the space for each other. You can obviously do sacred space on your own by following these four principles, even solo, when you do meditation or go for a long run. And we talk all about that in the introductory sessions to this series. But when we come together as a group, all of us together, holding sacred space for ourselves and for each other will tend to amplify that, right? Instead of a meal for one, it becomes this feast, this like potluck kind of feast. And that's the kind of joy of this kind of celebration and energetic feast in a way. So anyway, this is what I'm proposing. And if you are not okay with that, that's okay, right? We're not going to, harangue you to stay in sacred space. But if you're not okay with everything I just described, we are about to step into that space now. So before we do that, if you're not okay, we want to give you a moment to withdraw from the group. And that's cool. We'll still catch up with you later in profane space and hang out. But I will give you now a moment to dial that in and make your selection of whether you'd like to stay and continue or not. And either one's okay. Okay. And for now, for the rest of us, we will now move together into our shared sacred space. And as we come into sacred space now together, I'll just remind you that the four principles are in effect now. Confidentiality, no fear, threat, or control, no commerce, no recommendations, and no expectation of participation. All right, happy Sunday. Welcome to Sacred Space. Okay, so the overall topic I wanted to cover this week is a topic that is just near and dear to my heart. It is the 7 chakras of the Hindu tradition, and how they kind of relate to a number of different things we've been talking about today. And as I go through this talk, I'm kind of excited. I haven't given this talk on the chakras in probably a year and a half or 2 years. It's typically a talk I only give during like in-person retreats as kind of a side bonus thing. But here we are in sacred space, so the muse told me to do this, so here I am, as commanded. And as I go through, I will be making connections to other talks I've given. I mean, the chakras really touch on a rather vast topical area that, in a very nice way, I've already kind of, as guided by the muse, I've already covered in like 4 or 5 other talks I've given in this series. So you have access to all of that. And I've asked Gary to kind of just be ready, Gary, my editor in Bangalore, to be ready to sort of post those links in the chat and maybe even on Facebook to the replays of those talks. So when you watch this session, you'll have kind of links to those other talks to sort of kind of cross-reference into. Okay. So the chakras are an image and an archetype, which have been a powerful framework for me and a guide to my personal development as an individual, but also in guiding, in some ways where I'm aware of it, and many ways where I'm not aware of it, in guiding how my own bliss has unfolded in my life, right? How I have attained my own sort of level of bliss, whatever that is, and how I have unfolded and developed that bliss in the form of my healing practice, my teaching practice and preside out in the world. And I wanted to come into this topic because last week people seemed to really enjoy the sort of talk on the 4 yogas that I gave. So I wanted to get this part of the puzzle into sort of the formal record of these live sacred space sessions as well. So we have them all together. And so what I want to do is, let me switch to screen. Let me do a little screen share here to get us going on the topic of the 7 chakras. Share my entire screen. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. Can you all see my screen? Great, thanks, Gary. Okay, I'll move that down. And here we have, okay, so here we have an image of the 7 chakras. Okay, and when we talk about the 7 chakras, the idea behind this, and this is from Hindu tradition, it's part of the religious tradition, obviously, but also just the metaphysical, philosophical, but also like worldview of the Hindu system, right? So the chakra system is used in medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, in culture, not just in religion, although that's all very sort of integrated, as you can imagine. So the idea here is that there is this snake or serpent called the Kundalini, right? And when you see a snake in dreams, as I've always said, that you're seeing an image of the inner feminine or the divine feminine. We know from Abrahamic, right, Judeo-Christian tradition that the snake is feminine, although vilified, right? So in the Garden of Eden, there's Adam, there's Eve, and the serpent is associated with Eve, and they're all blamed for everything, right? But even from Hellenic, Greek tradition, the snake is associated with the feminine. From pre-Hellenic, just Egyptian, Zoroastric, the snake is consistently associated with the feminine. And in the Hindu tradition, the snake is also associated with the feminine. The E at the end of Kundalini is a feminine kind of gendered kind of suffix pronoun. So there's a snake here, right, in this theory, that is basically coiled at the base of the spine, base of the torso, sort of below the sexual organs, at the base of the sexual organs. And as you develop as a person, spiritually, in other ways, this snake will tend to kind of rise up through the body across one or two channels of the body, right? Throughout the course of your life, throughout the course of any given healing transformation or bliss transformation that you're going through, and arguably throughout the course of multiple lives, if you kind of get into that part of the metaphor. And as it coils up, right, as it uncoils and moves up, it will move through 7 centers of the body. And each one of these centers is called a padma, which is a word for lotus, or more popularly, chakra. And chakra simply means wheel. Right, so there are these 7 wheels, and they are considered like energetic centers. And it will go through all of these as it moves up. And as it moves up, your sort of spiritual development will progress. New Age folks will make a sort of big to-do about what level you're at, and what level you're at, how do I get to that level, right, et cetera, et cetera. And all that's fine. And so the way I use this system or an image like this is that, and I'll talk about sort of the sort of meaning and significance associated with each one of these 7 chakras. The way I use an image or a metaphor or an archetype like this is that this image is exceptionally old, right? It's very, very archetypal. So in this case, it appears in Hindu imagery, but it is also very deeply human. Right, this 7-level system appears in so the sort of alchemical system of the Middle Ages, right, which is a very similar system of development through 7 stages. In the Hellenic Cretan tradition, this is sort of a picture of the Cretan sort of 7-cycle labyrinth, right? So in Greek culture, basically, there is this 7-circled labyrinth, which itself is a not more elaborate, but similarly elaborate metaphor for the journey of a human through the different stages of life and their development over the course of an arc of a life like that. Okay. And so my point is, when I use a thing like this, I take the clue from the fact that an image like this appears across multiple kind of cultures and traditions. Oops. Let me just make sure. Okay. Okay, so people can see the screen. Okay, I'm just checking, sorry. Always a little bit worried about my tech. Okay, and so basically, I take my cue from seeing this archetype appear again and again across traditions, and then I just pick the instantiation, the version that resonates the most for me. So this is not I guess I say all that to say this is not a lesson in sort of Hindu metaphysics or spirituality. This is an archetype that is deeply human. And a lot of my images come from Hindu culture because Hindu culture itself is a gift of humanity, precisely because of its age and sophistication, right? Any image you see from Hindu culture is arguably 10 to 15 to 20,000 years old, or even older if you pull it back, if you make assumptions about sort of the provenance and age of the oral tradition. And India as a society has existed as a continuous state and nation and society, number of kingdoms, for that period of time, which is an extraordinary just achievement of humanity, right? I mean, the Chinese culture is similar, but it's not quite as old as and continuous as Indian culture. And I say Indian culture, Indo-Aryan, right? Hindu is sort of one phase of that, but I'm pulling it even back into possibly pre-Hindu kind of history as well. By comparison, the Christian tradition is obviously about 2,000 years old. It's about 1/10 of that, right? And the Protestant tradition, by which we, modern Western culture is kind of infused with, is not even 2,000 years old. It's around 500 years old, right? And Protestant Reformation happened around 1500. So by comparison, right, the Protestant system in terms of imagery, the fullness of the feature set, and I'm from Silicon Valley, so I think in these terms, right, is not just in beta mode, it's barely out of alpha mode. and we're just rolling with it. We're rolling with it, right? So as these things go, it can be a very powerful thing to look at the core imagery of these types of archetypes that show up in these very old cultures, Hindu culture, Chinese Taoist culture. And you find in the field, I mean, in my work, for those of you who don't know, I probably read about 8,000 to 10,000 dreams in the past few years of my advisees, right? These things, these images will show up in dreams that are just unexplainable in any other way, right? You will have, advisees come in who literally say, I dream I have a coiled snake in the bottom of my stomach, at the bottom of my, and you're like shocked by this, or an advisee will come in and they'll have a dream about a blue sapphire on a necklace around their throat tightly, right there, right where the throat chakra is, and the throat Vishuddha chakra is, the color associated with it is blue. And you're absolutely shocked by that. And you ask them, kind of on the slide, so are you a Hindu scholar? Have you studied these things? And they're like, what's Hinduism? We don't even know, right? So the literature is rife with examples of these images that come to people, and there's no way they could have possibly learned about them through conscious whatever. And of course, the Cartesian explanation as well, it must have happened in a boring way, some other way we just don't know about. But the mythopoetic kind of interpretation or explanation for that is that, it came to them, this coiled snake, this blue sapphire came to them from the same place that say, for instance, the chakra system came to the Hindus 20,000 years ago, right? Because these arise, arguably, archetypes out of our biology, out of our beingness, in this case, as humans, right? And then so when someone comes up with that, it just sort of, that vision of that part of the archetype spontaneously erupts out of them in the form of a dream or even an outside happening in the real world. In my healing work, you can use that as a kind of, toehold or joint, right? Joint in the artist archetype to get in there, to kind of crack open what's really going on and explore the dream or the happening, more fully there. And when you tell them this, they're shocked because, they're like, well, I'm just a good Midwestern Protestant. I've never heard anything about Hinduism. Isn't it pagan? Isn't it polytheistic? And I'm like, well, let's just look at the image. Let's not worry about like running off to India and joining the religion, right? We're not going to do that. But the way I think about it is just like a bird may have never read any book about nests, right? If you show a bird a nest, there is a resonance there. That has nothing to do with their formal education or cultural upbringing. It is much deeper than that, right? It has something to do with their intrinsic birdness. That if they've grown up, in a cage in a laboratory and they've never seen a nest, you show them a nest, you can imagine neurons firing in the MRI, where it's like they recognize what it is, even though they've never seen one. And that, to me, is one aspect, one wonderful aspect of the power of an archetype. So what I want to do here is I want to really quickly just go through all 7 of these super quick, and then talk a little bit about the physics of how they interact and what the progression from one to the next typically looks like. Okay, and I'll try to do that in the context of just my normal sacred space format here with all of its time constraints, because I could spend hours talking about this stuff, as some of you know me now well, will know about me, and I will spare you that today. I will spare you that today. All right, so to go through the different levels, let's see. So let's do it. What is this other slide I have here? Yeah, let's do it from here. So to go through these other levels, let me move this guy over to the side. And let's go through these just really quickly in order, and then I'll dive into the sort of the physics of how they interact a little bit. Okay. So the first chakra is down here at the root. It is called the Muladhara chakra, the root chakra. And the associated color is red. For those of you who are interested in keeping track, the associated element is earth. Okay. And the priority or the motif of this chakra is to simply exist. You grip tightly to existence, right? To whatever you need, food, water, security, protection, where the priority is not even that I want to procreate, right? I don't even want to procreate. I don't want to continue myself in other forms. I don't want to conquer anything. I don't want to develop spiritually. All I want at this level is just to not go out of existence. I just want to survive. I just want to live. And you grip on tightly to just the bare minimum of what you need to exist. Okay. And while that sounds wretched and pitiable, it is, of course, the foundation of everything else, right? You can't really be an actor on the world stage unless you are actually here, right? So, so that is the idea here, and so that's all I'll say for now. I'll get back to the other sort of, 3 levels of will and other things like that, and map that against this. So that's the Muladhara chakra. The color is red, and the next chakra up here is the Svadhishthana chakra. Okay. Oops. The Svadhisthana chakra. It is here at the level of the sexual organs, about 3 fingers below the navel. Okay. And the associated color is orange. Svadhisthana basically means her favorite resort. And this chakra is the chakra of desire. It's not exactly desire in the way we think of it. We would call it maybe want, right, in the need, want, desire hierarchy. But we just call it desire for here, and I'll sort of change up the words as we go forward. This is the chakra of desire. So in terms of beyond just existing at the root level, the next level up, right, once you have the root level covered, is that you will look out upon the world around you, and you will have this impulse to move toward things that sort of reflect something in you that you want to grab hold of and integrate as an equal, right? So my core desire, the thing that I do not have, that is missing, right, my missing piece that's out there, I want to integrate them with as equals. And this is sort of the root of sexual desire, romantic desire, et cetera, et cetera. And the associated color here is orange. In the framework where we've talked about the 3 levels of will, need, want, and desire, we would say that this is, call it want. And Muladhara, of course, is need. Okay. All right. And then where desire comes in, we'll talk about desire further on. So that's the second one. And the third chakra up is called the Manipura chakra. Manipura. Manipura basically means city of the shining jewel, so the jewel city. This is the yellow chakra. It's located basically at the level of the navel and above, around the region of the solar plexus, below the heart and above the sex organs. And this then is the chakra of ambition, competitiveness, the Adlerian will to power, right? And this is the idea of wanting not just to desire other things, as you do in the Svadhishthana chakra, but to, just to integrate with them, but to go after them in a way where you swallow them, right? That the digestive organs, the stomach is sort of in the place of the Manipura chakra, right? And basically, and the difference, right, between the Svadhisthana and the Manipura is here it's as equals, right? My equal, my lover. And here it's dominance, right? And the difference is that I don't want to just integrate with you as an equal, you or whatever the thing is. I want to conquer it. I want to dominate it, and I want to eat and swallow it. And when you eat something and digest it, you are turning it into yourself, right? The identity of the thing you're conquering, the apple that I'm eating goes away, and the apple becomes me, right? And that's the sort of action of the Manipura chakra, where you want to win, you want to dominate, you want to take in and turn things into yourself. It's a very egoistic kind of thing. And we'll say a bit more about that later. Now, the fourth chakra is the Anahata chakra, this lovely green chakra located in the region of the heart. This then is typically the gateway from the lower three chakras into the upper three chakras. So there are 7 chakras, 4 is right dead in the center. And this is kind of the inflection point, right, from one system to the next, or one realm to the next. Okay. We'll talk really quickly about what the top 3 chakras look like. But the color of the heart chakra, very interestingly, is green. It's not red or orange, right, as we typically have in Western society, right, where the romantic heart, the Valentine, right, all of which has very interesting sort of etymology, like root meanings of the words. And if you sort of do a little digging into sort of why the heart is red, et cetera, you'll come up with some interesting things, I think. But it's telling that in Western modern romantic culture, the love color is red, which is the root chakra, right? So when we go after a lover, we feel like we're going to die if we don't have them. We say, I need you, right? I can't live without you. And it is, from this system, you can see that it's a very kind of wretched state of love, right? Where you need something that you feel you don't have and you somehow can't provide for yourself. The feeling of the actual heart in a system like this is green, right? And so, for instance, when you see the color green in a dream, one of the first sort of things I look for is, what does this have to do with the heart, right? And again, if you think of the heart only in terms of romantic love or sexual desire, then you're kind of not really seeing all aspects of the heart, because love is not limited to just romantic love, right? And so the other interesting thing about the heart chakra is its name. The name of the heart chakra in Sanskrit is Anahata. And Anahata is a word that means not hit. Hata is hit, is not, right? So not hit. And the question then is, like, why are you calling the heart chakra not hit? What does this mean, this not hit? This idea, this concept of the heart chakra being the realm where it is not hit, comes from the idea that it is the sound, right? So when you reach this level, this 4th level, you are able to perceive the sound that is made not from 2 things hitting each other. Not hit. So the physical sounds you hear, right, are made by 2 things striking together. So when you hear the clap, it's from my 2 hands hitting together. The words coming through my mouth that you're listening to, right, are from the breath flowing over my vocal cords, coming through my mouth, teeth, and tongue, articulating, right, the different sounds, the consonants and the vowels. And so it's my breath hitting these things, right? So it's not that sound, it's not this sound. It's the sound that is made from not two things hitting together. So these are the sounds that are made by hitting. And the question is, what is the sound that is made by not hitting, right? And that's kind of a whole other talk. But those of you who are interested in that sort of thread of exploration, I'll give you a couple of just kind of footnotes or joins, breadcrumbs. This Anahata not hit sound is the same sound that is made in the classic Rinzai Zen koan of what is the sound of one hand, right? The koan of what is the sound of one hand is the sound of Anahata, not hit. And in the Zen tradition, when you realize that and are able to, quote unquote, answer that question, it is one of, you are able to sort of open up and progress to the next koans after that. Because that's a koan that tests, in a way, in a manner of speaking, I mean, it's wordless really, but they're checking for whether you're at that fourth chakra, in a manner of speaking. And that makes sense because, what is the sound of one hand is actually one of the earlier stage koans of the Zen tradition, which makes sense because there's still 5, 6, and 7 and beyond that to go, right? For as long as you can take it. For us, this idea of not hit is also evocative of unconditionality, right? The thing that is not caused, right? Because what is a sound that's made not by two things hitting together? It is a sound that is not caused by an antecedent. It is the sound that is always there. In other words, it is a sound that is unconditional, not created by any condition. Like to hear the clap, the conditions of my two hands and then striking together in a certain way have to be met. And the sound that is made Anahata, not hit, has no condition. And so for us, Anahata at, right, you can't make this up, at the heart level is evocative of unconditionality and of unconditional, the heart, unconditional love. Love for no good reason, right? Not love for existence and the root, not love for want, Svadhishthana, not love for fear or threat, i.e. power, Manipura. Love not for profane causes, right, but for no cause. Love for no good reason, which also, just to hint ahead, is the same thing as what desire is and your bliss is. The things you like for no good reason. Unconditional love. When you reach this level, beyond this level then, are the upper chakras, which then further develop and elaborate on this theme of unconditionality even further. Acausality, manifestation, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit in this talk, right? But this point, this is the point, the inflection point from the lower and the upper, right? At which it all transforms, this heart realm of unconditional love. Once you are able to perceive the feeling and the visceral sort of reality of unconditional love. So in the healing program that I teach, one of the things we do in like day 5 is we go very deeply into like, what is the nature of your unconditional self-love? Which is critical because I'm trying to get people like at least to taste, right, the feeling of this heart chakra. And when you hit that, right, then all this other stuff opens up. Okay, so I think that's enough of that for now. So that's That's the fourth chakra. And if you're like me, when I first really sort of got into this, I was like, okay, so unconditional, wait, there's more? We're only like halfway done. Are you nuts? That's Hindu metaphysics for you, right? There's always something more. So beyond that then is the fifth chakra. Okay, the fifth chakra, located in the throat, in the larynx, like right about there. Okay. The name of this chakra is Vishuddha, and the associated color is blue. Vishuddha is a word in Sanskrit that means purification, purgation, evocative of the feeling of blowing out. This is the chakra of the power of your voice, and we'll come back to this and talk a little bit more about this later. This next chakra, that's the fifth chakra. The sixth chakra is Ajna. It's located at the third eye, the space between your eyebrows here. The color associated with it is indigo. And this is evocative of, if Vishuddha is the power of your voice, Ajna is the power of your vision. The Gya in Ajna is connected to the Gya of Jnana Yoga, which is one of the 4 yogas I talked about in the previous session. Okay, and we'll talk about that today before we close, what that connection is. The seventh chakra at the crown, Sahasrara, this is sort of the chakra of awakening, or to the full realization of the true nature of reality. In the Tao Te Ching talk we did a couple months ago, we talked about what is the true nature of reality, the fact that there is only one thing that actually exists, there is no second thing. And the seventh chakra is where you have direct bodily perception, experience, realization of this true nature of reality. Oh, and I should say the associated elements are earth for Muladhara, water for Svadhishthana, fire, Agni, right? Agni for Manipura, air for heart. And you notice here, once we hit unconditional love, this is where the elements transform. This, I think, was ether. This was like just, I don't know, there's no name for this. The words fail at this point, so just like maybe pure energy. And I forgot what Ajna was. I think it was ether. I don't know, I'll look it up. I don't remember. I don't really track based on, I track more based on the colors and less the elements. I mean, the elements are just as valid. But I use this a lot in my daily practice for dream reading of my advisees. And the thing that comes up brilliantly is the colors and how they interact. So this is one of the color systems I use. So yeah, so some of the aspects I just don't remember because I'm not like using them every day, so they're not as at hand for me. All right, so there's a couple things to say here. How do I want to do this? Let's do this. Let's clear that. Let's go to the next slide. So we have a cleaner view. All right. So here we have the 7 chakras. Now there's a couple things to say here. The first is that for me, you know, these first 3 chakras down here, this cut line here, these first 3, this is basic existence, right? This is desiring, procreating, and this is dominating, right? Winning and losing. And these 3 quote unquote lower chakras, for me, are basically what represent, 80 to 90% of what we consider regular life, right? Those of you who do healing, right, all the soothing and shielding happen down here. All the drama of relationships, all the fear of, this is need and want. Like want is kind of these two, prestige, kind of the things you desire, food, sex, all that stuff. And we have said that want and need basically cover 80 to 90% of life. In healing, we say that soothing and shielding cover 80 to 90% of our life energy and our attention. And this system kind of bears that out as well. It kind of just makes sense, okay? And for me, that's fine, right? I have no problem with regular life. I mean, I love the world as it is. The world turns the way it turns. And I love the world without condition, right? The world does not have to be an enlightened world for me to love it. It does not have to be a just world, a fair world for me to love it. I love the world without condition. But then this is where like sort of, most of the world kind of just lives down here. And then there is this cut line here. Okay, this cut line where most people in their daily regular existence do not have the feeling, either giving or receiving, of unconditional love. Unconditional love. Okay. And above this line is like this region, not of like, higher development, spirituality. Those words don't really help. It's just, when I hear people describing things as, these are the higher realms, these are the better realms, that's just kind of a stick hitting you, going like, you dumb slob, right? This is the realm that you're not in. This is sacred space, so I'm going to try not to do that. The way I think about these upper four realms are realms of unconditionality or acausality, right? Which is kicked off at the fourth Anahata chakra with this idea and direct experience of something that is not caused, right? In other words, things that are not just by cause and effect, if you think about it that way. Where else have we seen a causal kind of phenomenon? When we've talked in the past about the archetypes. The archetypes are acausal because, you remember this this image of, the Hawaiian Islands. This is a horrible map of the Hawaiian Islands. And, in the Polynesian myths, right, I forgot which direction it goes, but this gave birth to this island gave birth to this island. And the reason you naturally say that in mythopoetics is because they look alike. They have similar flora and fauna. They look like they're in a row. This island is clearly older than this island when you look at the rocks and other things like that. This one still has a smoldering volcano at the top of it. This is the big island. And this one, has more like fine soil. So these volcanic rocks have been pounded into fine soil over the course of like millions of years. So mythopoetically, you say, this island is the grandmother of this island, and you can get away with that. It makes sense. But did this island actually cause this island? No, obviously not. Right? And the cause of these islands is this Joycean secret cause, this archetype. And so I just use this as an example of explaining what is an archetype. Where you have this, in real life, under the Pacific Ocean, you have this volcanic vent that's like constantly spewing magma. And then you have this tectonic plate, right? And over millions of years, this tectonic plate is moving in this direction. And this volcanic vent is continuously spewing up. And as it moves, first it creates this island, then it creates this island, then it creates, I don't know what the order is, Oahu, and then Maui, and then Big Island, right? So they look like they're creating each other, but they're not. But you would be wrong to say they're not connected at all, because they are, right? They're clearly siblings, right? But the underlying, you could say, secret cause is this archetype, metaphorically, this archetype of the volcanic vent that's coming out and causing, sorry, I keep changing the color here. That's causing all of the islands. So the cause is separate, even though it looks like the causality is linear. The cause is actually, it's more acausal. Okay, and this is how we generally think about an archetype. And so once you cross this cut line into Anahata and have the experience of unconditional love, which, not to get too far into it, you have within you, you just may not be aware of it or may not experience it in your normal, everyday, profane life down here. It opens up this entire realm of other kind of acausal phenomena, right? Which is everything above the green fourth chakra here. And let me... let's go to this slide. So, so this is unconditional love. This is unconditional voice, right? And we'll talk about what that means in a minute. This is unconditional vision, and this is unconditional awakening. Okay? And the question is, what are you actually awakening to? And the way I think about this is that you're actually awakening to the unconditionality of your existence. Okay. Let me just do a quick check. Oops. Sure. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure 50 people aren't saying, I can't see your screen. Okay. Okay. And so, and we'll talk about what these unconditional states further up are in a minute. But before I go any further, I also want to say this is the realm of the profane, and this is the realm of the sacred. Right? So the profane is the realm of fear, threat, and control. Right? Fear, threat, control. I mean, they're all fear, threat, and control. And the sacred is the realm devoid of fear, threat, and control, to the max, which is the sacred is the realm of, I mean, if you read it using this lens, acausality, unconditionality, which is a pretty extreme and badass way of saying devoid of fear, threat, and control. And a realm, as we've been saying, of love, nurturing, and surrender. Okay, the things that happen up here are all characterized by love / anahata, not hit. These things are not caused; they simply are. Right? This is what is. This is what it is. And this connects to another term we've used in the past, which is ziran in the Bliss program. Ziran. Ziran. Excuse my horrible penmanship. This is the Chinese word for nature, which means zi, self, ran, so. Ran is like so, the way it is, voila, blah. All right, so self, blah, self, voila, which is the word for nature. The one thing that is, blah, okay. Ziran, it is just what it is not caused, it just is, blah, right? With no interference or disruption from any force or causation. right? Which is not real, right? The causal world is illusory because there is only one thing that actually exists. So there can be no cause and effect because there's only one thing. There's no subject or object. There's only one thing. Right? And you can't call it, oh, it's the one subject. It's like, no, to have a subject, you need an object, and there is no object. So there is no subject. There's only one thing. And this is something I cover in the Tao Te Ching talk from a couple months ago. And Gary, I don't know if you're like tracking all this, but you can start putting up links to all these other talks anytime you're ready. All right. So I want to try and do a quick touch on each of these without going into like a full-blown talk. Haha, too late. But the idea here is, let me clear this now. The idea here is that the chakra down here of the Muladhara is conditional. Because I want to grip onto existence. So I do exist as Artie, as the dog, as the cat, as the apple, right? But I need to hustle to maintain my quote unquote existence. So it is conditional existence. Conditional existence. I feel I will only continue to exist if I eat, if I have shelter, if I survive, and have all those basics of sort of Maslow's hierarchy, like food and shelter, safety, security. Otherwise, if I don't have those, I will cease to exist because my body will die. I'll get stabbed, I'll get killed. I will no longer exist. So the feeling of like, this is the only mode I have, right? And I'm the sort of lone sort of victim in the world, and I must fight tooth and nail to continue existing. And that's fine. That's a valid mode of reality. Okay. So this is, how are we doing on time? Okay. Conditional existence. Conditional existence. Characterized by need. Right? Need is conditional existence. I need you. I need food. What does that mean? Food is a condition. That's what it means when I say I need food. If I don't have food, if I don't have food, the condition, then I will die. Okay. The next level up is want, right? And it is this idea of fulfillment. Okay. And it is conditional. Conditional fulfillment. I am half of a whole. I am incomplete, and unless I find my other half and I'm able to integrate right with something outside of myself, right? The woman on the outside, the partner on the outside, or else condition, I will not be fulfilled. Right. And by the way, when we talk about in healing inner masculine and inner feminine, this is where we start to talk about unconditional fulfillment, where you find your counterpart within your own self. Right? You find your inner masculine and inner feminine within your own self. You fulfill within your own self. And then that fulfillment reflects in the outer world anyway. And you get together with an outside partner anyway, if you want, there's no threat. And you just say, hooray, right? But it's not a need. It's not conditional. Okay. So there's a counter effect back and forth. Well, let me just continue here. So that's conditional fulfillment. Here, conditional power is what I think of as validation. And as we always say in healing, validation is not the same as love. Emotional validation is separate from love. They're conflated. We confuse them one for another, which is the cause of many of our emotional wounding problems. But they're actually separate. And here, the validation I get in Manipura power, winning and losing, is absolutely conditional. Right? We're not talking about love here, right? If I conquer you and I seduce you and you start worshiping me because I'm such a great person and like you get validation just from being in my orbit, right? I have power over you. And even though we're technically lovers, that's not love, right? That's this sort of Manipura conquest, right? Where it's not union, it's conquest, right? And even though so we talked about like different sort of names of love, the different words of love in the Friday healing session. But basically here it's sort of like, if we fulfill each other as equals, right? That's down here. If you worship me as this like higher being, even though we're having sex and we're in a relationship, that is the sort of conditional validation, right? And we'll often conflate validation with love, and we'll often conflate validation with fulfillment. That's what will happen when you're in a society where you don't have specific words for these things. And if you can't name something as separate, if all I have is the word for my face and I don't have a word for eyes or nose or mouth or ears, then I can't really work with the eyes. I can't go to the eye doctor. I just go to the face doctor, right? And I'll say I have a problem with seeing, and he'll start poking around my ear. Like, these names matter. So we don't have good names for this in English. So we're always confusing love with validation, with fulfillment, and even with need, right? I'll go to my lover that I'm addicted to, and I say, please don't leave, I need you, right? And that's a horrible thing to say, because it means I need you, which means if you leave me, I'll die, which means I'm only with you conditionally. Like basically, in a manner of speaking, it's saying, if I say I need you, I'm implying that I'm only with you because I have to be, because I have a gun to my head, because I'll be in pain if I'm not with you. And that's a horribly shitty premise in which to be in a love relationship, right? I mean, the ultimate love relationship was where it's actually unconditional. I love you regardless of what you do. I mean, if you're mean to me, I may not be able to be with you in your life and live with you. But once you love someone, right, you never really stop loving them, right? That's this feeling of Anahata. You just love them for no good reason. So anyway, back to this control, power, validation, third chakra. It's fear and power. It's conditional validation, just like conditional validation, just like conditional fulfillment, just like conditional existence. I will not be validated unless I make enough money, unless I score enough goals and win the game. I will not be validated unless I conquer you and make you do what I want you to do. Okay. So that's this third one. And so conditional validation, conditional fulfillment, I will not be fulfilled unless I find the object of my desire and integrate with her as an equal, and here as an unequal. And conditional existence, right? I need food, I need water, I need shelter, or else I'll die. So basically, all of this stuff happening down here is basically a life of fear, right? It's a life of fear, of threat hanging over my head at all times, and of control. And by trying to keep control of things so that you can avoid the things you feel threatened by, perhaps by threatening others, and just living in a world of fear, not love. And it's kind of a wretched place to be. And as we said before, this is kind of where most of us are most of the time. Right? When we say, when we talk about sacred and profane in general, most of us live like 99% of our time in the profane and 1% in the sacred. The first time I say that, maybe you were like, oh yeah, I'm too stressed and I have no time for myself and self-care and yoga and I used to go to church, but even church now, I can't go to church with everything that's happening over there. Forget it. So I'm really only people read it as like 1% in like spa, self-care, relaxation, 99% in stress world. What we really mean when we say 99%, 1% sacred is 99% down here in this wretched world of fear, and 1%, if that. I mean, forget about these. I mean, just touching the base of Anahata. I mean, for most people, they really don't have any visceral bodily experience of unconditional love until classically, this is not the only way, but classically until they have children. right? Your firstborn is like put into your arms in the delivery room. And you have this flood of feeling over you going like, this is like a slimy little peanut that I'm holding, all right, 7.5, 8 pounds. And I would die for this slimy little peanut. And I don't even know why, right? If like muggers, armed men, like burst into the room, I would like hide the slimy peanut and I would like give my life for this slimy little peanut. And I've only just met her, 5 minutes ago, right? So this feeling of complete unconditionality in that realm. Now, I always say, because you are the sovereign of your life, if you like being 99%, 1%, that's okay. You always have the sovereign power to choose, right? But the thing is, for me, for myself as the sovereign of my life, right, I get to choose too. And for me, when I look at the zoomed out 30,000 foot level of this kind of 7 chakra perspective, and I realize that unconditional love is only the midway point, and I've been spending 99% of my time down here, I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my time on this earth? It's like, what am I doing down here? It's not even, so New Age spiritual people will be like, well, I think I'm developing my Vishuddha now and my Ajna. And even there, it's pursued wellness, right? The tyranny of wellness is pursued with this power feeling, right? With this like, oh, let's compare notes. How developed are you versus me? And, what things are you doing in your wellness routine? And I need to like catch up, right? So even when you give this system to someone deep in Manipura, they will use it in a Manipura way, right? And that's okay. There's no like blaming or shaming. That's just what you see, because people are still 99% down here. So even if you give them something spiritual like the 7 chakra system, they will turn it into this power, want, and existence kind of thing, because that's the archetype they're in, right? So you give them anything. You give them Santa Claus. You give them the Jewish religion, Islam, you give them Buddhism, they will turn it into this power thing because that's the archetype they're in. And that's okay. That's like, you don't shame someone for having cancer or having the measles or the mumps. You don't shame them for that either. It's just where they are. Okay. But then when you see the reality of this like thing, I am like here and I see the vast landscape of this, and I get very sort of nerdy, excited, and curious about like, what even is over here? What is going on over here? Because there are pleasures and delights galore over here, right? I love food. I love sort of all the pleasures of being in a relationship. I coach soccer. I coach middle school girls soccer for 7 years, 3 seasons a year. And I can tell you, as the coach of a girls' soccer team, I like to win. I like to win. I like my girls to play hard and be physical on the field and win, right? So there are vast, vast pleasures in the realm of the profane. Profane's not bad. It's just profane. But when you see it from this perspective, you're like, if I enjoy all the pleasures of this so much, what the hell is even going on over here? I'm like, oh, that's like a whole section of the Vegas buffet that I didn't even know my ticket gave me access to. And I just assumed I couldn't go over there. I didn't even know it was like a curtain. And now the curtain is starting to be parted, right? It's like very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. So one way or another, right, by hook or by crook, you're down here slogging it out. You have the experience of parenthood or an interesting meditation experience, or the wounds down here of emotional wounding are so bad, you start looking for therapy, right, or other sort of modes of healing. And then you have experiences during those healings which pitch you up into this as well. Then you see the rest of the buffet up here. And then you start to sort of go up, not out of fear, threat, and control. Oh, I better reach, enlightenment in my lifetime, or I'll be like a bad spiritual person. I'll go to hell. I'll go to whatever the Buddhist version of hell is because I didn't work hard enough in this lifetime. Not out of fear, threat, or control, but of love, nurturing, and surrender. Oh, I feel like I'm in a river that's pulling me in this direction, and I'm going to let go and continue letting it sort of like, I'll just roll with it. I'm not going to resist it because it tastes good. It's interesting. Okay. And so that's the kind of feeling. Let's see. So at Anahata, one of the things, I mean, there's a whole talk I can give on like the nature of unconditional love, right? But when you realize this, you know, some of the ways these phases feel in the context of healing and finding your bliss, which is what I teach, right? I don't teach like the pure enlightenment stuff because it's just not my bliss, right? So I don't do it. You realize at this, you know, Anahata level, gosh, you know, no matter what I do, I will not lose love, right? I will always love myself without condition. The love I have, you know, you can earn validation, right? But you don't earn love. Like, you know, I always used to tell my kids, I still tell my kids, right? You are loved without condition. You can do anything. You can, you know, you can get straight Fs and get kicked out of school. You will not lose any love. You can get straight A's, get into Harvard and win the Nobel Prize. You will not gain any love because your love is unconditional, right? It's not a stock price that goes up or down. It doesn't go down. It also doesn't go up. I already love you as your father. I love you to the max. So that doesn't change. Now, that having been, right, so I like bestow this on the kids. So they have it. And I'm like, now that we've talked about that, let's now talk about your career. Let's talk about homework. Let's talk about working hard for the things you want. Not to earn love, right? But because you want and like nice things in life. You like money. You like good food. You like to be able to send your own kids to school or whatever. And so, and you have talent, and let's talk about that. But all of that is strictly in this realm. And the realm of love is completely cordoned off. It's separate. Love is not on the table because it's unconditional. So that's one version. There are like endless, infinite versions of this. So once you have this unconditionality of love, it opens up, right? The cut line is here. It opens up all of these upper realms into these next levels of unconditionality. What are these other levels? So when I've experienced this and observed it in my practice as a healer, is that, you know, you're down here in the soup and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like I had a horrible trauma when I was younger. I had a really bad childhood. I had a bad, you know, relationship with my parents, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all the things that are valid and normal that you hear, right, in this kind of realm. And then you have a healing and you realize, oh my gosh, my love is unconditional. Even on a good day, you'll realize your parents' love was unconditional, et cetera, et cetera. Then what will start to happen once you've attained this feeling of unconditional love for you, especially for you within your own self? You find your own unconditional love. And then they realize, they start saying things to themselves they were never able to say to themselves before. Vishuddha, purgation, purification, specifically in the realm of the voice. Instead of kicking yourself every time you make a mistake, you say, oh no, it was just whatever, it's okay. You are more gentle with yourself. You speak to yourself more gently, right? That's the first most rudimentary thing. Like you start being, you know, the inner critic, the way you slam yourself. Oh, you know, you're a piece of shit. I can't believe you did that. Everyone's judging you. You're like, no. People make mistakes. I always do this. You know, if people judge me, they already judge me because my handwriting's always been shitty. So if they're judging my handwriting on the slides, what's new? It's all right. You know, keep going with the talk, et cetera, right? And there is this feeling of, it's not just being falsely positive and gentle with yourself. It is this sense of truthfulness, right? Where you are truthful to yourself, where you're not being overly harsh because you thought, you need to be overly harsh to yourself, otherwise you won't, score goals. You're like, instead of like, you have to score goals or else you will lose love, which is not true. That already is a lie. You say, I don't even know if I like soccer anymore. And forget about scoring goals or not scoring goals. Why am I even playing this game? Right? That is Vishuddha. That is the voice of truth within your own self. Right? To be truthful to yourself without condition, without fear of consequence. Just no nonsense. This is the way it is. Like it or not, let the chips fall as they may. This is the way I feel about this game I'm playing, about this career path I'm on, about this relationship I'm in, regardless of the threat of outside consequence, if I am proved to actually feel the way I actually do feel, right? The threat that says, even though you may not like being in this relationship, in this career, in this whatever, you'd better pretend you like it and convince yourself you like it, or else you will lose love, actually just validation, which is survivable, not love, right? But I try to make you think you're going to lose love because that's the biggest threat. That's the biggest threat, right? The biggest threat, even more than losing your life, is losing love, not being worthy of love. Because that's like saying, why were you even born in the first place, right? It's an existential threat, even more than threatening your life, okay? So the threat, to be something different than how you actually feel, to be different, to be pleasing, to be competent, to be tough, to be capable. And instead of that, you say Vishuddha, unconditional voice, right? This is actually how I feel, and it's valid, right? All right, so your inner voice starts to come up, and you start listening to your voice. And then to speak without condition is to speak without editing, without changing, without intervention, without tough love, without censorship, which means to speak in the realm of the sacred, which means to speak things as they are. What does it mean to speak things as they are? It means to speak the truth. To speak things as they are, without editing or changing or censorship, out of fear of threat, control, and fear, threat, and control, is to speak the truth. Not just to others in the outside world, but most importantly to your own inner self. Vishuddha, once you attain unconditional love, you attain unconditional voice, which means to speak the truth to the outside world, but also to speak the truth to yourself, i.e. to stop lying to yourself. Because, Anahata, you love yourself, not hit, you love yourself without condition, without cause. Okay? If you feel like crap, you say to yourself, I feel like crap. You don't lie to yourself. You don't say, oh, well, I better feel good or else, I'm supposed to be positive. I'm supposed to be mindful. All the New Age spiritual wellness people are positive and mindful. So I better be that or else I'll be a bad New Age spiritual person or a weak person. You don't do that. You speak the truth above all to your own inner self, right? Without condition, regardless of the consequence. Another way of saying that is in the realm of the sacred, you speak the truth without fear, control, or threat. Okay. As a for instance, some of the things I've seen in healing is you hook into this unconditional love through whatever method, right? And then you move up into Vishuddha voice. And you start asking yourself questions like, so what do I feel? Right? What do I actually want? Right? What is my sexual orientation? What is my bliss? Right? What is my preference for what I want to do in my life? And all these people around me who are always going like this to me, how do I actually feel about all these people around me, actually? Right? Do I feel like they're all jerks? Do I wonder why I'm hanging out with these people? Right? And so then that voice starts coming out of you into into yourself, and then starts spilling out of you into the physical world. And then over time, the world around you and your outer world starts to realign as well, right? So this then is what I start to think about as unconditional Vishuddha, right? Unconditional voice, unconditional, let's see here, clear this. Sorry. Unconditional validation. Unconditional validation. So we move from unconditional love into unconditional validation. Okay. I will not lose love. Sorry. There we go. I will not lose love regardless of what I say. I will not lose validation even, right? I will not lose validation even regardless of what I say, what I do or say. And this is your own voice stepping up and saying, even if the rest of the world thinks I'm stupid, I'm still not going to think I'm stupid. Or even if I think I'm stupid, that's okay. I don't lose love if I think I'm stupid, right? Or if I need to pretend and sort of get by so angry mobs don't kill me, right? That's okay, right? If I need to pretend a little to get food, shelter, the things I need to continue living, that's all right, temporarily. But inside, I still have these unconditional. Okay, that's just a logistical, protective measure down here in the profane. But within my own self, in the inner sanctum of my own self, I don't love myself with condition, and I don't validate myself with any condition. So when you have then this sense of unconditional love, it gives rise to your voice, which then validates you without condition. And then that gives rise to your vision of life, which also then is unconditional, up to the sixth chakra, Ajna. Ajna. Okay, sixth chakra. So the sixth chakra is unconditional vision. So Ajna is related to jnana. Jnana. From jnana yoga, from the 4 yogas talk we did just last week. Okay. And jnana is what we refer to as that instant knowing, right? That instant perception, like the Buddhist, Zenist, gradual enlightenment, sudden enlightenment. Jnana is like the instant enlightenment of seeing the oneness of the nature of reality, that there is only one thing that actually exists. Okay. And when we say Ajna, this used here, my understanding of this is the sense of complete and total becoming, right? Is complete. So Ajna, right, is to fully come into this state of knowing. So complete knowing, complete vision, full vision. And the way I think about it is, if it's full, complete, and all-knowing, it is unconditional vision. Ajna is unconditional vision. Now, when we talk about bliss, right? When I teach bliss and we talk about bliss, we talk about the word here for bliss, and this is associated with sixth chakra. Bliss is Ananda. Okay. Nanda is joy. Ananda is full-on, complete joy. Unconditional joy. You have become joy itself without condition, right? Even regardless of what you do, you are in your bliss, right? So what I say all the time when I teach bliss is, once you're in your bliss and you are in complete bliss of what you're doing. So let's say my bliss is to be a healer and talk about these things and teach people, right? even if I do things in the profane. Like, so I'm in bliss, I do all these teachings. I still fill my car with gas at the gas pump. I still pay my taxes. I still make lunch for myself, right? So even though I do these things in the profane, that's okay, right? And in the context of bliss, even paying my taxes becomes an aspect of my bliss. Because I'm not paying taxes, I'm not eating so that I can just continue living in this Muladhara level. I'm eating as a way to feed the stem of this plant so that the flower of my bliss can continue to flower. And in so doing, even when I eat, even when I pay my taxes, it is a bliss act. And this is related to the other thing I say, which is when you are fully in your bliss, your entire life becomes sacred, becomes sacralized. Because even these things you do in the heretofore known as profane become sacred because they are feeding the sacred. The profane is feeding the sacred now. Right? When you buy incense in the marketplace, it's just incense. When you bring it into the sacred and burn it for the sake of, in this case, Ajna and Ananda, the frankincense, the Palo Santo becomes sacred. Right? How you use things affects their nature. Okay. So, and so it's related to this unconditionality. So if you love yourself conditionally for a while, that will lead to your validating yourself unconditionally, which will then lead to unconditional vision. Because in the things you say to yourself, what do I actually like? Who do I love? Who do I want to be with? What kind of life do I want to lead? They all lead to the bliss questions. And when you ask the bliss question, what do I wish to do with my life? What do I like for no good reason? Anahata, not hit. What are the things I like for no good reason? When you answer that question, that answer is the breadcrumb that leads you to your bliss. Right? So this then is desire. Right? This then is need. This is want. And then bliss, unconditional vision for what you actually want. Like I'm a sculptor, and that means I'm going to be penniless. My family will disown me, and nobody will love me and marry me. And despite all that, I just have to sculpt because I have to sculpt. So sue me. What am I going to do? What can I do? Right? I mean, what you can do is you can stay below the cut line and just live this conditional life, which many people do. And that's fine. It's each person's sovereign choice. But the penniless artist comes up here and says, this is what I do. And it's just, and I have to do it, and I'm going to do it without condition. So this ladder here, this is why healing will eventually typically flow into bliss. Healing, you start looking for down here because you're in the soup, you're in the labyrinth. It gets you out of the lower three into unconditional love, into the realm of the sacred experience of life as well, which leads to this, which then leads to this. Okay. So that is the kind of direct logistics of how healing leads into bliss. And then this is a circumambulatory kind of path, right? So once you get up here, you're doing things, you're following the things you love to do, the things you will to do for no good reason, right? So this is like the 3 levels of will: the need, the next level is want, the things I do to relieve the pain of my emotional wounds, and the level of desire are the things I will to do for no good reason. And this is why, to get back to Gary's kind of point, when I don't do this desire thing, it doesn't hurt. And this is why it doesn't hurt, because it's unconditional. So if I don't do it, there is no condition, there is no consequence. It doesn't hurt. If I don't do something down here, it hurts like hell. It hurts like hell. And that's how you distinguish between the desire and the want. And so the way this circumambulates back down is once you're doing this for a while, you still come back down and, you know, pay your taxes and do everything. And so there's a circumambulation back and forth here. This then supports this, so it goes back up. And then the other thing that happens here is that you're in your sort of love, voice, and vision for a while. And then as the how do I depict this? As the crown of the tree gets bigger and bigger, as you go from love to voice to vision, the roots of the tree need to get deeper. Because if you don't have this echo sort of counter ripple growth, and your roots only go down this far, if you try to go from here to here, the tree will just fall over. Right? So the upper has to be reflected in the lower. And what typically that means is, as you go from unconditional love to vision, to voice to vision, you will trigger even deeper wounds that you will go down and have to heal. Not have to, but your growth here in this direction will be stopped until this catches up. Okay, and that's not a should. That's not like something I made up. It's just what I have observed in the field, right? It makes natural sense to me anyway. Okay, and this is why this is a 7 chakra system. This is the midpoint. These echo each other. This is conditional validation. This is unconditional validation. The next concentric circle out, want. Right. So validation, conditional validation, transmutes through love, unconditional love, Anahata, into unconditional validation. Here, what do you say? You better score the goal or else, you dumb slob. Here, what do you say? I don't even know if I like soccer. Right. Or I like it, but I like it because I like hanging out with my friends. I don't care if I score or not. And the next time my dad nags me to score, I'm going to tell him that, regardless of the consequence. Not that I was ever a dad like that. No, never. Not me. And so here we have want transmutes through unconditional love, Anahata, into desire. Right? Conditional fulfillment, unconditional fulfillment / vision. And finally, existence, need, transmutes through unconditional love, Anahata, into acausal, unconditional existence. Right? And I'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay. So, so when you come back down here into the realms of want and need, when you found your bliss up here, you will still do things like pay your taxes and eat and try to stay healthy. Okay. But those actions have been sacralized. And one of the ways that happens is that, to use our languages, so when I pay my taxes now, I do so not out of fear, but out of love. Right? It's not like I love the American government, but it's like I pay my taxes not because I'm afraid of getting in trouble, or if I don't eat, I'll starve and I'll get sick. It's not out of fear, it's out of love. It's like I want to eat and be well nourished so I can continue doing my bliss well and with a clear mind. I want to pay my taxes and get that out of the way so that the entire sort of financial, legal, business machinery of my bliss practice is in good working order so that I can continue growing the crown of the tree out further. Right? So you do the same things, right? I'm still going to the bathroom. I'm still like taking my vitamins, but out of love, not fear. And that's what happens when things are transmuted through this Anahata chakra. So by the way, when you dream of green things, when you dream of color green, you're in the middle of this There's something going on here. Either you're transmuting through because you're going from healing into this next realm, or you're coming back down, sort of exploring this area. Something is happening around the heart. That's what we mean by that. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let me go through my notes here. Talked about a bunch of this stuff already. Agya. One other fun thing to say is that I'm such a doofus with this pen system. Let's do this card. So one other thing to say here is that this Agya, to make another connection, is also the state of Joycean aesthetic arrest that we talked about in the session maybe a month ago on the sacred and profane in beauty and the arts. When you see your bliss, the thing that is ziran, that is not caused, not hit, that is acausal. Ziran is the thing I just like. I didn't choose to be a healer. I just am. Right? I mean, even if I may not like the fact that I'm a healer, just like I may not like being a sculptor because it makes me live a really difficult life. But you can't choose your bliss because it is not caused, right? It is placed there acausally. So when you see your bliss, the thing that is not caused, the thing that just is, ziran, just is, you start doing it for no good reason, right? You start doing it for no good reason. Your desire is the thing you like for no good reason. And when you start doing it then, therefore you do it for no good reason. And it does not move you from fear or repulsion or wanting desire, right? In other words, it does not move you from pornography and it does not move you from didactics, okay, to use those Joycean terms, but from, and this is the characteristic of aesthetic arrest, it arrests you because of the secret cause. And as we said in that talk, the secret cause of the Joycean system is what maps for us to the archetype. So the secret cause of your bliss, your ziran, is the archetype, the innate pattern of what you like and how you flow for no good reason. I'm a healer. I can't help it. That's just what I am. So sue me. What can I do? Right? You're a painter. You're a writer. You're a sculptor. You're a banker. Right? You're a plumber. You're an accountant. For no good reason, you just love it. Assuming you're doing it as your bliss, not as a profane fear, threat, control thing. Agya, it just is. And I mean, this is the sixth chakra. So it does take time and circumambulation, right? Sort of going through the maze, the labyrinth, to get up there. To see it so clearly that all fear falls away, you just go. Like automatically, you just go. It takes time. As Miles Davis, the renowned jazz musician, trumpet player, once said, it takes a long time to sound like yourself, right? And that is this Agya. It takes a long time to sound like yourself. Okay. And of course, also to make another connection, since this is bliss, this is also related to the concept of karma yoga. So the seeing is the jnana or ajnana. And then the doing for no reason is the karma yoga. Now, as you remember, the formula of the characteristic of karma yoga is that you act without regard for the fruit or the result of your action, which is the essence of karma yoga. Okay? And this action then arises out of the agya. You see it so clearly, it's irresistible, it's your desire. And it's like, oh my gosh, I am a healer, I am a painter. And you start acting and painting and becoming a healer, however you do that, without regard for the fruit of your action. Right? This bliss and the action of your bliss, the karma yoga of your bliss, arises out of this complete vision of Ajna at the 6th chakra. The archetype compels action for its own sake. Right? Me, for instance, right? So when I pursue my bliss, I'm in my bliss right now. I'm talking to you about all this healing nerd stuff with all of you. We're all here sitting together in sacred space across time zones, across geography, even across time for those of you watching through the replay. Gorging together on our shared sacred space, our shared emotional nourishment and spiritual nourishment. This is my bliss. And so it is a vision for me that is unconditional. As long as I am able to do it every now and then, or be in a state where I'm just sitting around thinking about these things, alone in a room, quietly, right? I'm in my bliss. There's nothing else that's needed. I mean, logistically, I need to be alive and blah, blah, blah. And even then, who knows, as we talked about the golden thread, right? If it's not this body, it'll golden thread into some other sort of instantiation. There's nothing else that's needed. So my bliss, right, that is not conditioned on the ability to reach or not reach hundreds of millions of people, billions of people in my lifetime. It's not conditioned in that. I will go in that direction. That's the direction I naturally go in. But I do it regardless of whether I know I'm going to make that or not. Right? Win, lose, or draw. As regardless of how the chips fall, my bliss is not conditioned. Every second I'm on that path is bliss. I am fulfilling my bliss now. Right? So there's no condition. There could be a couple hundred of you out there. There could be like 0 of you. It's the sense of unconditional vision, unconditional validation and fulfillment, all resting on the core realization, right? Unconditional vision, unconditional validation, fulfillment, all resting on the core of unconditional love for myself and for the world. Right? This is why I'm always saying, like, I love the world without condition. Do a quick check of how we're doing. Okay. Oh, thanks, Gary, for bringing that up. All right. So it seems like everyone can still see my screen. Yay. All right. So now let's talk about this last one, which those of you who have been following my talks, you can probably just, give this part of the talk on your own without me, which is unconditional existence. So when you open through the 7th chakra and you have that sort of experience and you're able to maintain it, assuming you even care to maintain it, it is what some traditions call awakening, enlightenment, realization. And what you basically realize is that your existence is unconditional. What does that mean? What that means essentially is that you are able to perceive directly in your mind and your body the actual reality that there is only one thing that actually exists. That's it. We talked about this in the Tao Te Ching talk, the nature of reality talk. And also when we talked about in that talk of the sacred and profane and the conceptions of God, where we said, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. Gary will post that talk too. And what does that mean? Right? Omnipotent doesn't mean she can do anything. It means she does do everything. Omnipresent doesn't mean she can be anywhere. It means she is everywhere, which means she is everything. Right? And omniscient doesn't mean she knows your thoughts. It means she is actually thinking every thought. She's thinking the good thoughts and the naughty thoughts. She is everything. So she is the good things and the bad things. And she does everything, the good things and the bad things. Right? From Isaiah in the Old Testament, I, the Lord, create light and darkness. I, the Lord, create good and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Okay. And the reason for this is because there is only one thing that actually exists. And obviously, you are that thing. Because if you weren't that thing, there would be two things. At least two things. At least two things. But there is only actually one thing. So if there is only one thing, and you are this one thing, then your existence is unconditional. which, by the way, means you do not die. And so the classical Taoist notion of immortality, when you attain your immortality, comes from this. Right? There are like 3 great ages of Taoism. We're in still sort of the 3rd age, where they took immortality legalistically, linearly, literally, right? And you're taking all these pills and potions and exercises to make your physical body live longer. And this is not the original myth. That's the Cartesian interpretation of Taoist immortality, not the mythopoetic interpretation of Taoist immortality. The mythopoetic immortality is that you realize your pre-existing immortality through the realization, right, that you are this one thing. If you're immortal, then yeah, it means you won't die. But it's not just your physical body, because your physical body hasn't always existed. If you're truly immortal, it means you never not existed in the first place. Right? It's beyond time. Right? So to worry about making your physical body live longer when you have a literal birth date, a finite birth date, is the profane way of looking at the Taoist concept of immortality. Right? The reality of your immortality is that the reason you never actually die is because you were never actually really born. Because there was only one thing. If there's only one thing, then you were never born. And yes, you will never die. But it's true of your continuity basically goes beyond you eternally, both after your physical death point and before your physical birth point. That's the point. That's the point. And when you realize this, it's one thing to know this intellectually and say, oh, ha, 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 Artie, isn't that clever of you, right? But the real thing we're talking about here in this chakra is to feel this in your body, to know it in your bones, to know it within you, even without words or ideas, to feel the true nature of reality as it is, with no censorship or filtering, to know it unconditionally, validating, to see it without condition, right? And then to feel it, to feel your own, I mean, obviously you have unconditional love because there's only one thing. So you love yourself, the one thing loves itself, obviously, right? So all of this unconditionality is gorgeous, and, you know, is kind of comes out of this fruiting and flowering out of this, right? But really, the roots of it were here already. You can go up here and up here and up here for fun, but you don't have to, right? And if it truly is unconditional existence, if you're this creep down here that's just grasping at everything and not even like thinking about romantic love or winning, you're just kind of hiding in your apartment, eating Cheese Whiz, right, and not going outside, that's okay. That's okay because your existence is actually unconditional. Right? So even if you think it is this, even if you dwell in these realms, right, the reality is actually this entire thing, whether you see it or not, whether you choose to see it or not. So for me personally, right, I teach bliss. I teach up to this level. I don't teach this next awakening level. It's just way too, you know, spiritual or whatever for me. And it's not my bliss. It's not fun. It's not pleasurable for me to talk about this. Partly because there's so few people that are actually ready for it in the body level. And it becomes this kind of lonely, tiresome pursuit, right? So I stop here. But if you do bliss, karma yoga, and you're into this, you're at chakra 6. So you will naturally, without anybody else pushing you, start bumping up against this anyway, right? As we said in the last talk, jnana, bhakti, raja yoga, karma yoga, any of the 4 yogas leads all the way kind of up through this anyway. Okay. But in terms of the overall structure, you can see the sort of mirroring, right, and echoing of the different layers around the center transformational point of this. Right. So there's all this transformation that we've already talked about, and then it goes. Let me see here. It goes back and forth. And we've talked about that in terms of the tree image. Okay, and we're getting close to time here, so I think there was one more. Right, so when you go back down here, you're doing things, you're still paying taxes, but you're doing it out of love, not fear. And then, that's the other thing I wanted to say. When you blow out here and you realize, you are the one thing, right, that actually exists. And this is eternal. What that means is this is not the end, just like this was not the beginning. Right? This entire thing is not a ladder, it's a ribbon. This, this can go into any of these other slots, but this goes back down eventually to here. This echoes kind of what the bodhisattvas do in the Four Yogas talk, right, from last week. The bodhisattvas, realize this. Obviously, they have to realize this to see the whole tree. Then they say, no, we love the world so much, we're going to stay below this level, and then even be at this like sort of poor slob level down here, until all the poor slobs are brought up, which of course is impossible because it's a ribbon, right? So if it's like a wire that's in a circle and there's an electrical current, there's always current at every point of the wire. So this will never be done. You will never have 0 people suffering down here. Something will always suffer as long as you have this kind of game, this illusion of the 7 levels. And so that's why it is this kind of illusory thing when you're down, when you perceive you're down here and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get up to this higher level or else. And that's just the power and want chakras talking, right? When you want to get up there and spiritually develop out of fear and not love. When you actually get up here, you have unconditional existence. You're just like, anything's fine. Everybody's fine. When I was down here, I was fine. When I was down here, I was fine. And then the question arises once you get here, so what do you actually do? Right? Do you just stop? Do you just float off into a pool of like jello, right? Purple jello? And I'll tell you, in my experience, this is a ribbon, not a line, right? As we've said before, this is life, the pattern of life, the pattern of healing and bliss is circumambulatory, it's not linear. So here you may go back down here and choose to be born in a physical form in the physical world. And if you do it at that point, ultimately you're doing it out of love. In other words, you're doing it out of desire. You go back down for no good reason. You do it out of unconditional love, right? So you end up here and living your poor slob life in the profane, 99% profane. All of you are doing this right now if you follow this metaphor. Through choice. Similar to what the bodhisattva chooses, but not as noble, even more hardcore. It's like the Buddhist version, beyond Buddhist version of bungee jumping without a cord, without a bungee cord, right? You dive down in. And the reason you do that hardcore thing is because you know, right? Nobody in their right mind would do this unless they had this perception of there's only one thing, I can't get hurt, right? So you choose to go back down for fun, for the lila, the play, right, of the universe. Now, there are many different traditions which talk about this. Even in the Christian tradition, right, the angels come down to earth and they give up their wings and become humans because, a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is in this tradition I'm thinking of, this sub-tradition of Christianity, is because the angels want to have sex, right? Not because it's dirty, but because you have all this, pleasure in the heavenly realms. And you have all this pleasure in the profane earthly realms. And everybody obviously wants both for the fun of it, right? for the fun of it. And it's okay, because even though you give up your wings and come down here, you're still an angel. You never really lose your wings, right? And then us down here, us poor slobs living in the profane, we're looking up at this part of the buffet going like, ooh, hopefully not out of fear going, I better progress or else I'll be a bad Protestant, I'll be a bad Hindu, and my parents will be disappointed in me. No, you want to come up here because you want to try that part of the buffet too, just as the angels want to come down and try this part of the buffet. Everybody gets to try everything, right? That's a wonderful feast. There's an image from normal life too, which is us as humans going to the movies, right? It's very similar in feeling. Like you go to a scary movie where you're so terrified by what's happening on the screen, you have to go to the bathroom and throw up. You're so scared. You have nightmares for days. And guess what? You paid for that. Well, I don't like scary movies. I'm always like, you're like crying because you're so upset and you pay for that, right? But some people do, right? Some people do for excitement. And then you come out of the movie theater and everything is okay again. And you had the excitement and you came back and you're like, oh, that's wonderful, right? And so for real life, the idea is you sort of live, down here, you get tired of it, you come up here, and, in the extreme level, you'll blow out here, and eventually you'll come back down because, none of us can stay out of a movie theater forever. We always go back. Right? So that's one way of thinking about it. All right, so we're at time now. What else do I want to say? Let me look through my notes here. So the other thing I'll say is that you are, because this is a ribbon and not a linear ladder one time, right? This is a ribbon, you go back down and start again, and it's a constant flow, circumambulation back and forth. What this also means that you are a blend of all seven. Right now you are a blend of all seven. Right? You have moments in your regular life where your voice bursts through and you say, I don't like playing soccer. I don't like being in this relationship. And you say, oh no, go back down. We need to have fear or else, right? And then a week later, you're going back up, right? You're down here working in the salt mines of your banking job or accounting job or legal job, and you hate it. And every now and then you say, you know what? I'm going to run off and just be a painter like I always wanted to be, right? That's just the cliche version. I mean, there are perfectly many people who are, like I'm thinking now of a dear, dear friend who is a lawyer in Silicon Valley, right? So he's in this realm all day long, helping companies IPO and fight lawsuits and everything, but he actually loves it. It's his bliss, right? So to watch him in the profane realm is watching someone in their bliss, and you can feel it when you're in the room with someone, okay? So you're constantly sort of going back and forth, and this is the pattern of life, right? So one way to think about this is life is circumambulatory. Okay. So you start down here in the profane, you go, all around. This is an image of the labyrinth, the 13th circuit labyrinth at Chartres, which I actually visited last October. It was a very powerful experience for me. And eventually you make it up through, chakra 7, and you blow out and you enlighten. You have the beatific vision, right, of heaven, as the Christians say. But basically, this is a spiral labyrinth. In other words, this labyrinth is like this. Okay, so if you turn this 90 degrees and you're looking at it cross-sectionally, you are traversing the labyrinth this way. So the center of the labyrinth is the top here, and the entrance of the labyrinth is here. It's a spiral. It's a spiral. And another way of looking at it is, if you take this labyrinth then and you turn it back this way, what you get, one image you get, is the cornucopia, right? This is a spiral going upward, just like this is a spiral going upward. And there's this like endless fruiting forward of bounty. I mean, cornucopia, funnily enough, is literally a buffet, right? And I love food and the profane and the sacred, so I use a lot of food images. This is also a grail, right? So the Holy Grail from Middle Christian, medieval, mythopoetic imagery is the same kind of image of a spiral circumambulation around the center. The root is down, the trees, and so when we draw the tree before, right? This is the crown of the tree. These are the roots of the tree, and the heart chakra is somewhere here. And the more abundance you want, the deeper you want to go down to mine for more and more sort of power in this sense. So this is the source of all plenty in your life, abundance. This cornucopia is the circumambulation and cornucopia of your life, but it only really happens when you're willing to sort of move up and down, right? So it doesn't matter where you start, but you can imagine if, where are we here? Let's do this one. If you are here and you're stuck here, or you're all about career and threatening yourself and fear, threat, and control, you may fear falling back down, but you won't go up. You won't have this transformation of consciousness that brings you beyond the cut line, right? So the key thing is, it doesn't matter where you start, right? The key thing is you want to be open to movement. You want to be open to movement. And the way you get open to movement is to, use any archetype, but for us, let's say the archetype of the sacred and profane. The archetype of meditation, when I say let go, and you do this. This is profane, this is sacred. Clenching, this is power, right? This is surrender, unconditional love. Right? The sacred is just on the other side of this cut line. And so regardless of where you start, as long as you're open to movement, you will end up circumambulating and circumnavigating through all of these. And the process will just be sort of generating these, explosive releases of life energy in your life to do the things you want until you get to the outer ring of your bliss as well. And maybe even beyond that, but only if you want to, right? And then you'll go back down and up. So it's this constant forever thing, up and down from the crown to the roots of the tree. And it's beautiful because the whole thing is this massive rushing flow throughout your life. So that's why I'm I love life without condition. No matter where you are on this ladder, you're in this, put it this way. Anywhere in this cornucopia is a sweet place to be. And this is sort of this mythopoetic image of life, right? There's bliss up here, there's healing down here, but anywhere you're in this horn of plenty. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say for the talk. And the last thing I'll do is, before we close the session, is I want to give this bit of an exercise. So let me stop sharing my screen. And come back in. Let's see our people. Is anyone even still out there? Okay, people are still out there. Thank you for bearing with me. So before I close the session, I'll give you a little exercise. So only if you want. This is just a fun little thing to try. So an exercise you can do is you sit quietly alone and you starting at chakra 1, the root chakra. You go up and you take a pause at each chakra as you go up to the top. And at each chakra, you kind of ask yourself, what does this chakra feel like? Have I had a feeling like this? right? So the root chakra, afraid of like not having food, not having shelter. The power chakra, have I ever felt anything like that? The fourth chakra, the way I've described it, have I ever felt anything like that? The fifth, the sixth chakra, etc., etc. And that's it. Just ask yourself viscerally in your body, when have I felt in my body something that feels like any of these different chakras? So it's fun. It's a fun kind of exercise to kind of match the conceptual ideas I've shared to the visceral feeling in your body of your actual historical lived experience. So you can start matching the two. And once you match sort of the idea with your embodied kind of lived experience, the thing will start to sort of amplify and strengthen, right? I mean, every archetype gets its power from its reflection in the ectype, right? The copy, the stamp of the archetype is a stamp, and when it stamps out, what you get is the ectype, right? So archetype and ectype. So every archetype wants to just stamp out more and more ectypes. And so when you find the ectype of how fourth chakra actually felt for you, perhaps as a new parent, or when you saw, I mean, there are all these stories, right, of people seeing like people in distress, and they run to the rescue, even though they'd be like nuts. It's like you're going to get shot if you go rescue that protester who's like running toward the riot line, right? But people do it anyway. They have this oneness, this realization of their oneness with that person, and this fourth chakra, you can argue it's sixth chakra vision, right, takes over. And the archetype, when you have that archetype in your mind, and then you match it to the visceral feelings you felt in your body when you actually experience something like that, the archetype itself takes on this added power and accelerates, amplifies in your life. Okay. So that's it. That's the exercise to try. Again, no fear, threat, or control. There's no, it's just for fun. So it's only if you want, only if you want. Okay. So that's it. All right, so that's the session. Thank you, everyone, for being here with me. And now I'll close the session. And sorry, we ran a little bit over time. So our next session is next Sunday. Feel free to invite others. It's free and open to the public. Next Sunday, I think Gary will actually be telling, the whole session will be this mythic story that Gary kind of brought up in my conversations with her a couple of weeks ago. And we've been kicking the ball around on it. And it's interesting to the point where I think we just want to make the whole session this story, right? So that'll be next week. Ask more questions if you have. You have the call to action link in your thing, so you can sign up for the next Sunday session right now. And we'll go ahead and close the session. So I hereby close the session of our shared sacred space. Thank you for holding this space with me. And thank you for sharing the nourishment, the emotional nourishment, the spiritual nourishment of this shared sacred space with me. I give you my blessing. Go in peace, bestowed with blessing, free of fear, free of threat, and the undue control of others. Have a great day, have a great week, and I will see you all in the next session. Thank you. Thank you.